Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And also, while you're here, subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Let's get into it. We have launched our conference previews over at cbssports.com, and we started with the ACC because I guess we're big fans of alphabetical order. And in the ACC, the consensus is that it's Duke and North Carolina at the top in some order. So let's start here, Norlander. On a scale of, I don't know, let's do one of those 1 to 10 scales. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that nobody other than Duke and North Carolina will finish in the top 2 of the final ACC standings?
Oh, I was wondering if you were going that nobody will in the top 2. So just those 1, 2. I'm a big fan of decimal points. I'll say 3.61 confidence that it will be in any order Duke and Carolina being top 2. It's because I'm way in on Wake Forest, which we'll get to. It's sensible to have Duke and North Carolina going into the season top 2. The ACC is set to release its preseason media poll and I guess coaches poll coming up here, and Duke will be 1 and Carolina will be 2. I fully expect that to be the case. But, and we'll kind of dive a little bit more into this as we talk about more and more teams. There are a few team rankings where I'm settled with where I put them in the context of this conference, but I'm not all the way convinced. We'll see. Duke and Carolina being 1 and 2, I think is the fair thing. But I think Wake Forest is a very fun and very real sleeper in this conference to be in that top 2, potentially win the league. I think they've got immense talent there. But it's good for the ACC from a national perspective that Duke is as big as it is. Obviously, a huge storyline, which we'll get to in a second. And then Carolina coming off a 1 seed. They didn't make the Final Four, but they bring back RJ Davis. If you listen to our summer shoot around, he is the rare returning All-American who is not a big man. And so that's also a very good thing for the ACC in general. There's a lot of good PR appeal and just familiarity with this league beyond the corners of North Carolina and elsewhere around the conference there. I think this league, after getting yet another team to a Final Four, has real appeal and some real eagerness to it that will bring in casual fans.
I don't know whether it'll actually be Duke and North Carolina 1, 2 in some order in the final ACC standings. There's so many variables that could disrupt that. An injury here, an injury there, some other team just being awesome when you don't necessarily expect it to be awesome. But on paper, going into this thing, it is clearly Duke, North Carolina 1, 2 in some order. And there's a pretty sizable gap. This is just one way to illustrate that. But I did go back last night and just sort of look at this because I assumed what I found would be what I found. And that's that there's a 21 spot difference between second and third in the ACC standings at BartTorvik.com's preseason rankings. In other words, Torvik has Duke at number 2, North Carolina at number 5, and then the next ACC team is Miami at 26, followed by Wake Forest at 31. So there is a 21 spot gap between North Carolina at number 2 in the ACC and Miami at number 3 in the ACC. So I went and looked at the other power conferences just to see what is the gap between 2 and 3. I guess there's always going to be there's often a gap somewhere, but just what's the gap between 2 and 3? I just told you in the ACC it's 21. Big Ten, 1 spot difference between second and third. SEC, 2 spot difference between second and third. Big Ten, 1 spot. Big 12, 1 spot. So the other 4 power conferences, the team projected to finish second and the team projected to finish third in the conference are not separated by more than a couple of spots nationally. And yet in the ACC, there is a big gap. You go from Duke, North Carolina to everybody else. Does that mean anything to you, or is that's just the way the algorithm spits
I think that'll wind up shaking out differently just because I'm, again, big on Wake Forest. But heading in, sure. In fact, Torvik's really high on Miami, who I think is going to make the tournament narrowly. But I'd be surprised if Miami was wound up as a top 3 team in the league personally. But I do think we will have a a real competitive race near the top that will come. My projection for the league this year is it will be more than just Duke versus North Carolina for first place by the time let's say we're third week of February or something like that. I think the teams that wind up being in the third and the fourth spot will genuinely be in there. And I'm not convinced. I put it this way too. I'm not convinced that any team in the ACC will pull away from the league. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that the league will necessarily be down. I don't think that'll be the case at all. In fact, I think it's going to have a better regular season this upcoming than it had even last season. But I do think that the league should reasonably produce at least 4 teams that should have, by the time we get to March, we look at them, whether they're 1, 2, 3, or 4 seeds, we look at them and say that team's capable of winning 3 games in the NCAA tournament.
What I also love about the top of the ACC is you've got these 2 big brands that are projected to finish first and second, and the teams are just made up in completely different ways. Duke is going to be led by a 17-year-old forward who won't turn 18 until 4 days before Christmas. North Carolina is going to be led by a 22-year-old guard who's going to turn 23 in less than 2 weeks. So just, what do you believe in? And that's a conversation about, I'd be interested to know who you voted ACC Player of the Year, because it is not normal to have a returning conference player of the year who doubled as a first-team All-American, but then also now in the league, a freshman phenom that is projected to be the number 1 pick in the draft. So I know which way I went. We'll figure out which way you went here in a second. You've also got 5 storylines for us. We'll do that next. First, though, let's get a word from our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, Norlander, with each conference preview here on the Island College Basketball Podcast, you're going to give us 5 storylines, which I love because it's just something that happens and I don't really have to think about it. I just have to sit here I just have to nod along like, oh yeah, that's interesting. So go ahead.
You're not going to hold on. You're not nodding along. We're going to do that. I'm going to give you one at a time, and then you're going to give me your quick thoughts on each one. Okay.
Yeah. Here's my thought on each one. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
That's all I'm going to say.
We can bring a little bit more for our audience here. Come on. Okay, listen, less than a month until the season gets going. Aren't you feeling? I'm genuinely feeling amped. I'm getting into that mode. The leaves are falling up here in the Northeast. I don't know if they're falling down there around Mississippi, but yeah, I'm getting pumped here, and I hope
I ain't really been paying attention. I ain't really been paying attention to the leaves too much lately. I've been focused on playoff baseball. I'm consumed with playoff baseball. You might not know nothing about that.
I actually had the 3.5 minute mark before you injected the Mets. So I'm
consumed with playoff baseball. So go ahead, give me 5 storylines, and I'll act like I care.
All right. The storyline number 1: how will the Mets season ending affect Duke this year? No.
Interesting.
Storyline number 1 is Cooper Flagg. Everything connected to Cooper Flagg. Is he going to be what he is hyped to have been leading into this, which is to say the most anticipated incoming freshman in, I think it's fair to say, a generation, given just how much buzz was around him. I'll remind, if you're just dialing back in to check in on college hoops here and getting amped up, well, welcome back. But we've said this a couple times in the offseason. A reminder that Zion Williams, while he was plenty hyped, don't get us wrong, he was not the number 1 prospect in the class and was not the best prospect on his own team. That was a guy, what was his name? RJ something? Anyway.
RJ something. And then Cam Reddish also ranked higher than Zion Williamson coming out of college.
So Zion Williamson, he became a huge deal. And was really one of the biggest stars we've seen in college basketball in the past quarter century. But heading into the first game, there is more anticipation for what Cooper Flagg will be at Duke than there was specifically with Zion Williamson. So will he be
Cooper Flagg most hyped incoming freshman since Anthony Davis? Since
I think Anthony Davis is the answer. I think it's Anthony Davis.
Okay,
that would be my statement on it. Prior to that, it's probably Greg Oden, I think, although there was a lot on Rose and there was a lot on John Wall. You put them all at the same table together. There was a ton there. But I think Anthony Davis was the last time we had an incoming freshman with this much hype around him. And arguably Cooper Flagg even exceeds Anthony Davis. So storyline 1, is he going to be the best player on Duke? Because he could be. There's a chance he might not even lead Duke in scoring. In fact, I think that's a very real possibility. Will he become the face of the sport? So quickie thoughts on you on what to expect and what we should brace for with Cooper Flagg, because I almost wonder if we're putting too much around him altogether, considering the talent that he has on that team. And let's not set up Cooper Flagg to be something that he might not prove to be ultimately as a, again, 17-year-old that won't even turn 18 until 4 days before Christmas. I promise, by the way, not to Ryan Williams this thing. Every time this guy gets mentioned for Alabama, they mention that he's 17. We're not going to do that on the pod, GP. We're going to get it out of our system on this episode.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep doing
it. I'm getting it out of my system.
I am hesitant to insist that a 17-year-old in this era of college basketball is going to be the best player in the country. I'm hesitant because it rarely happens. We always think it's possible. It almost never happens. It happened with Anthony Davis. It happened with Kevin Durant. That's it. Those are the only times freshmen have been the best player in the country. All right. So this is, we think maybe it'll be Derrick Rose.
Zion?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Zion. Yes. Yes. So Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, 3 times. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Good catch. We often think it'll be true, like, ooh, you know, and it's rarely true. So I'm not ignorant to the history of this. I still think he's going to be the best player in the country. I voted him ACC Player of the Year, and I will vote him preseason National Player of the Year. I think I'm a little opposite than the masses here in 2 big ways connected to the ACC. I took North Carolina ahead of Duke in the league standings, league projections. I'm the only person on our panel that took North Carolina over Duke. Everybody else, yourself included, had Duke over UNC. So I'm zigging when y'all are zagging, or vice versa. And then I took Cooper Flagg, ACC Player of the Year, instead of RJ Davis. I did make RJ Davis a first-team All-American, but I also made Cooper Flagg a first-team All-American. And there's 2 things that decrease my level. Would be, he went and played with USA Basketball and got rave reviews. Like, he didn't look at a place with literally the best players in the world. That's a good place to start, because whoever he's in a gym with in college, it ain't gonna be like being in a gym with LeBron and Steph and KD. So that's a good start. And then our Candid Coaches series, we asked who's going to be the best player in the country, and I think by a sizable margin, the leading vote getter was Cooper Flagg. So we've seen him go to USA Basketball and look the part against the best players in the world, some of them who are 10, 15 years older than him. And so if you're concerned about somebody being 3, 4 years older than him, he was just in USA Basketball with people 10 years older than him. And then the coaches believe in him. I've had coaches with other freshmen say, he's a kid, be careful. He's skinny, or he's young, or something. The coaches believe in Cooper Flagg, not just John Shire. Coaches from coast to coast believe in this guy. I think he's going to be great.
Storyline number 2, RJ Davis. Can he be the National Player of the Year? Can he give an encore performance as a first-team All-American? For as much as is on Cooper Flagg in that part of the country. Shouts, by the way, to the Ben Folds 5 record behind me. North Carolina. A lot of North Carolina love on this ACC preview there. Want to give a shout-out to one of the great bands from that state. Will RJ Davis be able to replicate the amount of impact and value he had last season, this upcoming season? I think that he has a really good chance. He was I don't want to spoil. We're saving this for the end, but whatever, I'll spoil it here. RJ Davis is my preseason pick to be ACC Player of the Year. Do you like his chances to be one of the 5 best and most valuable players in the sport?
Yes, because he was last year, and some of the other guys that joined him on that list are no longer around. I would have him as a first-team All-American. I think when we just submitted ballots, I'll just be transparent with it. We submitted ballots for National Player of the Year, 3 players. I went Cooper Flagg 1, Mark Sears at Alabama 2, RJ Davis at North Carolina number 3. So yes, I think he'll be the second best player in his league, but maybe the second best player in the country.
Okay, there's a real chance of that. Storyline 3.
And let me just be very clear I'm not. There's no way Cooper Flagg won't be like RJ Davis might be the national player of the year. I'm not ruling anything out. It's just if you had to, I don't feel that strongly about this. But if I had to pick one player to be the ACC player of the year, I will bet on the freshman phenom.
Come on, Duke.
Storyline 3. Times are good in North Carolina these days. NC State's coming off a shocking Final Four run. We'll get to them in a little bit. To be determined if they're going to be able to make it back to the NCAAs or not. But Wake Forest, as previously mentioned, should be ending its NCAA tournament drought. It has not made the first round of the tournament since 2015. And with Hunter Salas and Efton Reed and others in the fold here, I think a big storyline is just how relevant North Carolina hoops outside of UNC and Duke, which are a major part of it. But we'll see what NC State can do. And then Wake Forest being able to be a real player here. I'm still shuffling a few more spots on my preseason top 101 list, but your one spoiler alert, I am going to have Wake Forest in the top 15 heading into the season. I am all the way in on the Demon Deacons, and I think that they are a wonderful dark horse to win the ACC. Steve Forbes obviously has come close, GP, a couple of times here, hasn't broken through. Quickie thoughts on the Demon Deacons and what he's built in Winston-Salem.
One of my favorite things to point to is that often the best teams in the country are not necessarily teams that enrolled the 5-star freshmen as much as they're the teams that got the borderline NBA draft pick to come back to school. Like a guy who could reasonably leave college, but he came back for whatever reason. It wouldn't have been crazy if he left. If he announced he's staying in the draft, nobody would have said, what is he doing? This idiot. Hunter Salas could have stayed in the draft. He would have probably been picked. He'd probably be on an NBA roster right now. You get that guy back, and we're talking so much about RJ Davis, Cooper Black. Hunter Salas could be the ACC player of the year.
He was awesome considering him as a preseason first team player, by the way, nationally.
Yeah. I had him on one of my, I think we did 3 All-American teams, 5 players each. Hunter Salas is on one of them for me. Yep. I just am a big believer every year. I mean, go look at UConn last year. You know, they got Donovan Clingan to come back to school for a second year. He could have left after 1. He comes back to school. You know what happened. Just about every national champion has one of those. A player who could have left a year earlier, but he came back for whatever reason. And now it's time to go break through. I'm with you. I have Wake Forest 3rd in the ACC. I don't have them in my top 25 and 1, so perhaps I'm not as high as you are, but that's the NCAA tournament team. It's the team I have projected to finish 3rd, and they are one of the bigger examples of, and Forbes has been on the wrong side of this. You know, he didn't think he was losing Jake LaRavia as quickly as he lost Jake LaRavia. He's been on the wrong side of this, but this time he got that reasonable NBA draft pick to come back to school for an extra year. And I think he will take the Demon Deacons to the NCAA tournament for the first time in his career come March.
Storyline 4, the ACC has had a Final Four representative in 7 of the past 9 tournaments. Does that continue? If you want the refresher, here we go. 2015, Duke wins the title. 2016, you're looking at UNC and Syracuse. UNC obviously famously losing to the buzzer at Villanova. 2017, UNC gets back, wins the national title. Didn't get anyone in 2018 and 2019. Virginia wins the national title. No tournament in 20. In 2021, no ACC team. 2022, Blue Blood Final Four. UNC and Duke both obviously go. We know how that ended. 2023, Miami makes the trip in somewhat surprising fashion, and obviously NC State last season in very surprising fashion. So 7 of the previous 9 tournaments have featured an ACC team in the national semis. GP, does that continue in 2025?
Obviously, who knows? But if I got to pick,
what would you lean?
I'd lean just because I know I got 2 obvious candidates with Duke and Carolina. You know, I do feel like there's a drop off there somewhere after that. But yeah, I got 2 top 10 teams. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, as an extension of that, as I mentioned before, I do think this season, before we even get to the postseason play, I think it's going to be a really good year for the ACC. And as we're going to get to our teams here in just a second that we think are going to make the tournament, this league, while it has no shortage of transfers, at the very top, when you look at the players that we are expecting. Well, I don't want to say that because
I don't mean it like that either. How about this? I'll just speak factually. They have 0 transfers who were ranked in the top 30 of the transfer rankings at 24/7 Sports. The league.
Yeah.
The highest
is-
rated Cade Tyson at
yeah.
34.
Yeah, Cade Tyson obviously going to be a big factor at UNC. Yeah, it's semi-refreshing, but I'm interested to see how that goes and how the ACC.
Or is it just evidence that they're poor?
No, it's not.
ACC poor.
I know. I assure you.
Well,
no. Especially with some of these schools, absolutely not.
I think the Big 12 might be poor. The ACC, just the Big 12. These are 24/7 sports transfer rankings.
Yeah.
The Big 12 had 9 in the top 30. The SEC had 7 in the top 30. The ACC had 0. Is the ACC poor? Why aren't they buying players?
No, but well, and it's semi-circumstantial. A lot of the teams on the bottom half needed to rebuild. By the way, Nada, put up on the YouTube if we could put up a poll on yes or no.
Is the ACC
get one
poor?
team? Not as the ACC poor. Not does the ACC need to go on well for it. That's not what we're doing. Yes or no? Does the ACC have a team represented in the 25 Final Four? I'd be interested to see what our viewers determine on that. Okay, last storyline: coaching spots vulnerable to change. I think the 3 most likely here, you're looking at retirement watch at Florida State. I don't think Mike Young should be vulnerable to losing his job, but Virginia Tech's, it's a very tough job. He's done a decent job, but you get to 18 teams in a league. This is this is going to be the reality and the downside to expanding all these conferences. You got to have teams finish 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And if that happens and you're coming off a couple of years where you don't make the tournament, I think in this era, you're just going to be vulnerable to potential change. So I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying he should be on the hot seat, but I would say Florida State, Virginia Tech, and then maybe Pitt. GP Capel did a really good job last season. I actually like Pitt to make the tournament this season, so I don't even think that this will come into play. But if Pitt didn't, I have to bring up the fact that they recently made a change with their athletic director somewhat out of nowhere. So I think that can also sometimes add to the urgency of a coach's situation. But on the whole, considering this is an 18-school league, I don't see a lot of hot seat situations there. I didn't put Larinaga from Miami on this because he has maintained that he is not close to retiring. And frankly, he's waiting to see if the Boozer twins will wind up committing as well. And if that winds up happening, there's no chance he will be retiring before they were to get on campus next season there. So any thoughts on hot seat retirement watch or otherwise when it comes to the coaches in the ACC?
Jeff Capel has finished top 4 in the ACC each of the past 2 years and has a team projected to make the NCAA tournament this year. Disrespectful. Get him off the hot seat.
I didn't say he's on the hot seat, but if he doesn't make the tournament, that'll be 6 times in 7 years that they're not in the tournament. Is there that much difference between what he's doing and what Mike Woodson's doing, considering he would have had even more opportunities than Woodson to make the tournament? You have Woodson clearly on the hot seat if he doesn't make it in Indiana.
I mean, we're talking about Indiana and Pitt, aren't we?
Well,
I mean, those are different.
I could make an argument that Pitt was at one point going to the tournament annually and highly seeded, and to accept that that's no longer the case and this is good enough might be a reflection on why they are where they are. That's all.
They in fairness, that all happened. It was true. It was at a time when the program was being run by 2 borderline Hall of Fame guys.
I don't think I can say Jamie Dixon is a borderline Hall of Famer.
He's
a good coach. I don't think he's a borderline Hall of Famer.
It's okay. Maybe I took it too far, but he's won a lot of games and been to a lot of tournaments at schools that haven't won a lot of games and been to a lot of tournaments.
Yeah. No, very, very good coach. Don't get me wrong. Very good coach, Ben Howland. Very good coach. I have Pitt making the tournament, but GP last year we went into the season thinking like, okay, coaching carousel, like, okay, it could be decent. It was the busiest one we've ever seen in our entire lives. So, and we talked about that Big Ten Media Day. We said over under 2.5 coaching changes in an 18-team Big Ten. We both took the over. Same question here. 2.5 coaching changes in an 18-team ACC. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll take the over. And but I don't think Capel will be one of them. Okay.
I don't think he will be either because I think Pitt's going to the tournament.
Okay. So where you look, I mean, the most obvious place is Florida State, not because of a firing, but because the coach is 76 years old.
Yeah. This feels like it's heading that way. But once you get past that, it's hard to identify, GP. Keats is fine now at NC State. I don't think like Boston College is projected near the bottom of the league. I don't think it applies there.
I know, but I say this as respectfully as I can say it, because that is a hard job.
Yeah.
But
he just won 20. Didn't he win 20 games last season, by the way?
20 games means absolutely nothing to me.
And maybe not to you, but at Boston College, winning 20 might as well be winning 27.
Tell me who they were. Tell me who they beat.
I can give it to you right now. Fairfield, the Citadel, Richmond, Harvard, Vanderbilt, Central Connecticut, Holy Cross, St. John's, Lehigh, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Syracuse, Louisville, Miami, Louisville, Miami, Clemson, Providence.
Is that one NCAA tournament team?
Let me see here. Clemson made the tournament. Miami definitely did not make the tournament. So Clemson made it. That is it. Yeah, that's it. One.
Okay, so like, congrats on your 20.
All right, you're firing Earl Grant. There we go. He's gone.
I'm not firing, but I'm saying this is my point. In the past 3 years, he's finished 11th, 10th, and 11th in the league, and is expected to finish worse than that. It's a hard job, but there's a long list of men who have taken hard jobs, struggled in those hard jobs like most other people do, and they get replaced at some point. And if you go 4 straight years of nothing at BC, well, then, it's at least something the administration has to talk about.
I will take the under. I will say there are 2 coaching changes in the ACC by the time we do this preview pod next year. And then if that is the case, I would anticipate that over under a year from now might be 3.5. Speaking of the tournament, let's get to who we think is going. You go first. How many teams? I have not only of the teams I have going, I have the projected seeds. I don't think you went that far. And that's just fine. But give me how many is the ACC sending and who's going?
So the ACC has gotten 5 teams in the tournament each of the past 3 seasons. It's 5, 5, 5. I'm going to go 6 this season. And I'm going to take them in this order. If you want me to attach some seeds to it, I can play along. But I'm going to go North Carolina as an ACC champ, 1 seed. I'll go Duke after that. Let's call Duke a 2 or 3 seed. I'll go Wake Forest after that. Let's call Wake Forest a 7 seed.
Okay.
I'll go Miami after that. Might have been disrespectful. I agree. And then Virginia and Pitt, my other 2. I got 6. North Carolina, Duke, Wake Forest, Miami, Virginia, Pitt, all in the NCAA tournament. Clemson, Louisville, just on the wrong side of the bubble.
Okay, I'm going to go 7 ACC teams to the tournament this year, GP. Duke as a 1 seed. Give me UNC as a 3. I'll take Wake Forest as a 3. So I'll say UNC maybe is the best 3, and Wake Forest maybe the worst 3. Clemson as a 7. Yeah, Brad Brownell, he's all the way back, buddy. You think the Tigers are going anywhere after making the Elite 8?
I don't even feel right living in a world where Brett Brownell's not on the hot seat.
He ain't on the hot seat. He's going to be the president of that university by the time we get to next summer.
It's going to be interesting to see how Brad coaches without real job pressure.
He is good to go. Cannot be killed. Love it. Clemson as a 7. I'll take Virginia as an 8. In part because it's Tony Bennett, but I tell you what, a couple of these teams, like, I don't even know which way I want to go with Virginia. Like, part of me is like, history shows like they should be pretty good in the ACC. Like, they tend to finish well there. And yet the ending was so bad last year, but give me Virginia in the 8-9 game. I'll have Pitt in the 10 on the 10 line. And then I will have Miami in the first 4. So those are my 7 that are in. I'll give you a couple nuggets on the remaining teams here. But before I do that, why don't you tell the folks how you break down the rest of the ACC 1 through 18, which, by the way, if you're watching or listening, the preview for this app posted on the app and on cbssports.com, that will be linked here. You can tap through and read after the show's done, or hell, you can read it now as you listen along.
Virginia's interesting. I'll answer your question in a second, because I look at them first. I look at them and I go, I don't really know. And then I go, God, it just seems like it's fallen off. And it has on some level. They haven't won an NCAA tournament game since they won the NCAA tournament.
I know that's a thing with Virginia fans. It will become a thing that's much bigger if it happens again and they don't get a tournament win in 25.
And the losses are like not to good teams either,
right?
Or at least not to big brands either. So that suggests it's fallen off, and it has. But when you go, I'm just going to read you Tony's last 7 ACC finishes. First, second, first, 6th, first, 3rd. In
Yeah.
6 of the past 7 years, they finished top 3. They finished top 3 in each of the past 2, and that's where it feels like it's fallen off. So they're still right there. It's just they don't have the March success that they were enjoying, in the late teens, I guess.
Yep, I agree. I got him 5th. How does your ACC breakdown?
Okay, so I got 6 ACC schools in the NCAA tournament. Again, Carolina, Duke, Wake, Miami, Virginia, Pitt. After that, I told you Clemson, Louisville, just on the wrong side of the bubble. I've got Georgia Tech at 9, NC State at 10, SMU at 11, Notre Dame at 12, Syracuse at 13. Bet you Syracuse fans never thought they'd be projected to finish 13th in any basketball league in the history of the world, and yet here we are. Virginia Tech at 14, Florida State at 15, Stanford 16, Cal 17. I got Boston College at 18.
And then, okay, give me we have 3. I think we only have 3 schools in the same spots. Give me your 1 through 6 again.
Carolina, Duke, Wake.
Okay,
So we have Wake in the same spot.
Wake in the same spot.
Miami 4, Virginia 5, Pitt 6.
Okay, so we have Wake, Virginia, and Pitt in the same. So we have 6 total. You get to these 18-team leagues.
It's just
this is,
there ain't a whole lot of difference between like 16 and 9.
I just forecasting out an 18-team league is it's an exercise in personal torture for me because you don't freaking know. Injuries are going to play a part. There are going to be dudes that wind up being really good that we just don't see coming around the bend here. So having said that, I did want to lean into the very real possibility that there will be teams that seriously subvert expectations. I got Notre Dame at 8th. I got Micah Shrewsbury, whose coaching acumen is basically unquestioned in the basketball world. They were not good, nor were they expected to be last year. He brings back a ton this season, and they've had some huge wins on the a year from now. Notre Dame will be projected to make the NCAA tournament. I think they're not going to get there in year 2. I wouldn't expect, but they have so much coming back. Plus, they bring in Prince guard Matalaka, who I like a lot. I think he is just great. Marcus Burton's a big name to know there. So give me Notre Dame to be the team that seriously rises in the league. I've got Syracuse at 9. JJ Starling's back. He's a lot of fun. Eddie Lampkin, by the way, going to pay rent on the low block. He's finishing out his college career with the Orange. Chris Bell on the wing is also a pretty underrated player there. So I do like you had Q's lower. Maybe a little bit of a flyer there, but I like Q's to kind of blend in the middle of the league. I will go NC State at 10. No DJ Burns. It's a bummer, but man, did he go out on top. DJ Horn, Casey Morsell are also gone. Ben Middlebrooks, Michael O'Connell.
They bring back good role players.
They do. Again, this is one of those, to me, NC State is anywhere from, I think reasonably speaking, I think NC State is anywhere from 8 to 13 in the league. I just didn't know. So I tried to split it down the middle. Okay, so here's the one where I just don't know. I got Louisville at 11. One of many total rebuilds. Kelsey's only season below 500 since he became a head coach was his first one in 2012-2013 at Winthrop. And I actually think Kelsey's job at Louisville and how it juxtaposes against Kentucky, that wasn't in our 5 storylines at the top, but that's also another big one. And obviously it's interconference storyline there. They bring in Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards Jr. from James Madison, who, by the way, was good, really good player there. Noah Waterman via BYU, a few guys from Charleston. It's a total rebuild. It was so bad. So I know some people like Louisville to be a dark horse to make the tournament. I'm not even going to say that's out of the question. Openly admitting, Cardinals fans, that I just don't know how to handle this team with all these new pieces in an 18-team league, and it was so low. If I gave it to you right now, if Louisville fans, 18-team league, I give you 11th, I guarantee you finish 11th, or you roll the dice and gamble, and that can mean worse than 11th. I wonder if you would take 11th in year 1. Do you think they would?
Baby. We're not taking 11. Are you out of your mind? This is
well, if you gamble it, you could be 16. Like,
so what? We've been 16. We've been living at 16.
Okay, you want to live that life?
Hey, buddy, I ain't worried. Hey, we've been through the worst of it. Let's gamble. What's the worst?
I know Cards fans are big on that. Virginia Tech.
Here's the thing about what Pat's going to do at Louisville. I don't know if he'll be the next Rick Pitino or Denny Crum. What I do know is immediately it's going to be a total, like, you're just not going to be embarrassed anymore. Like he's bringing a certain level of competence to the program, and they might not be great, but they're gonna look like a competent basketball program again. It's not going to be embarrassing. Look, here's the way I would present it to Louisville fans.
I agree.
Here's the way I would present it to Louisville fans. If I told you with 2 weeks left in the regular season, you are first team out at Jerry Palm's projected.
Oh, they're taking that. They're taking that.
Let's go. I don't think it's crazy to think that's where.
I don't think it's crazy either. Again, I'm not putting Louisville at 11 with ultimate conviction. Kelsey's never coached at that level before. It's a total rebuild. The culture there was awful. I just want to see how it goes. I fully anticipate on projecting Louisville to be at worst like a bubble team in year 2. We'll see. I've got Vatek at 12, and that's primarily because Mike Young's a really good coach. I think if he wasn't the coach there and you look at the roster, you could easily put them lower. He's 92-66 in 5 seasons, including 50-52 against ACC teams. We'll see. SMU, dude, what do you want from me? I don't know. Andy Enfield, he's starting over in an unsuspecting place. They have 6 transfers who averaged double digits last season. Wake Forest lead guard Kevin Miller is probably the most important player there. Oh, it is a guarantee that the ACC will wind up having a team that's like 5th in the standings, 7th or 8th in the standings that was projected in the teens, or say 12 or worse. If you told me SMU, I'd believe you. But if you told me SMU was 16th in the league, I believe you. I don't know. Cal, I have at 14. 10 portal pickups for Cal. Mark Madsen did a good job there. Andrei Stojakovic from Stanford's a big one.
Great job there.
Matty Sissoko at Michigan State's another big one. Regis Petratus from Air Force, who averaged 16 points and 16 boards. I think he's got something good there. I'm openly rooting for the Calgorithm to cross over to college hoops season. Hopefully we can get something there. And hell, if us, projecting Cal in the bottom quarter of the ACC gets the Calgorithm to notice us and really gets it going, by all means, big fans of everything Calgorithm there. FSU at 15, retirement watch is on. I tell you what, though, they convinced Jameer Watkins not only to pull out of the draft, but to not go into the portal and leave for another couple high majors that were really pushing on him. Jameer Watkins could be a first-team All-ACC player on a terrible team. I mean, he is going to have a chance if he wants to score north of 28 points a game and maybe be the highest usage guy in the conference there. But I'm not big on FSU's prospects overall. I've got Georgia Tech at 16, and I'm not happy about it whatsoever. Oklahoma's Javian McCollum was the big portal get. Kawasi Reeves returns. Can he be like a big impact guy? We'll see. Kyle Smith has the rebuild at Stanford, so I kind of put them at 17. And then BC, lost Quentin Post. Much of the roster is turned over. We'll see. I don't know. You get to 18 teams. It's a whole hell of a lot. Before we do our awards and get out of here, at least just a few quick thoughts on the teams that are going to the tournament. Duke, I saw some mentions in the chat for Con Knipple. He's getting a lot of praise here in the preseason. Maybe he winds up being the guy that leads Duke in scoring. I don't know. He's a freshman. They obviously bring Tyrese Proctor back, Caleb Foster. We did a whole shoot around on Duke, so if you want deep thoughts on Duke, you can go there. But just in general, the amount of anticipation in Durham and what awaits to me is very fascinating. And while Cooper Flagg is going to be the headliner, like the composure and performance of Proctor, I think is paramount to Duke's chances at winning the ACC. Caleb Foster coming back off of injury is pretty key there. Kaman Malawach is not really well known right now, but dude's like 7'2" and just played in the Olympics, and also I think he's still 17 years old. I mean, he's also tremendous. So there's a lot of intrigue with Duke there, and how Duke and Carolina kind of compare to each other will be interesting. You mentioned Kate Tyson before. Carolina does not have we talked about this on the shoot around. The Carolina fans were annoyed at you because you're a bigger believer in the team, big picture, than they are. There's a lack of interior presence there that's going to be a real concern, and I get all that. But I do buy in to the roster, and I do think that they've done a relatively good job. And I also really like the freshmen. Like I've already written my capsule for UNC in my top 101, and I think that Drake Jackson was the more highly touted. Ian Jackson was the more highly touted freshman, narrowly coming in, and he could get his buckets. But I think Drake Powell is going to prove to be like one of the 3 or 4 best two-way freshmen in the country, and his inclusion, I think, to me, is what solidifies UNC in that conversation. And then again, I'm just give me all the Wake stock. Give me all of it. Steve Forbes has come really close. It's not just Salas, although he's a huge part of it. You've got Efton Reed, who is a major, major, major factor on this team and a really, really good big. I'm doing this with Wake Forest even after losing key pieces. GP. Cameron Hildreth is back. They got a Louisville transfer that's in. Omaha Billieu comes in from Iowa State. He wasn't a factor whatsoever, but he's a former 5-star prospect. They've got more transfers coming in, and we know what Forbes does there. So I'm in on Wake Forest definitively as the number 3 team there, in addition to the teams I mentioned before. Clemson, Virginia. Watch for TJ Powers, a transfer from Duke. I think he could be an impact player. Pitt, man, if they had Bub Carrington back, dude turned into a lottery pick out of nowhere. And good on Capel and his staff for coaching him up and developing him there. But I still think Pitt will have enough and is going to get to the tournament. And then Miami, to me, is the team there right on the line. We wait and see. They had injuries, but they went. I mean, they just evaporated last season, and I can't see Larinaga having a bad team 2 years in a row.
Well, Miami is one where I don't have them in my top 25 and one. I don't believe, but you look at the roster, and it's like, hold up, I know that guy's good. Like Nigel Pack is a good college basketball player.
Him and Cleveland are back, which I think is basically why I'm putting Miami in the tournament, because those two guys could combine to account for 44 points a night.
Right. And so they've got, and then Lynn Kidd's that's a good college basketball player. And then they've got a, possible lottery pick, one and done lottery pick, 5-star freshman. I like the Miami roster. I'm intrigued by it. When I looked at that roster, I was like, I don't know if that'll be a good team, but they've got good players.
They do. What you're saying is that's interesting. Okay, let's wrap this up. We actually went pretty long here. That's what 18 teams will do for you. Player of the year, freshman of the year, transfer of the year. If you have a transfer of the year, I do. Who are your picks?
Player of the year, I went with Cooper Flagg. I recognize it could be RJ Davis or Hunter Salas or somebody else. I mean, who knows? But I'm going to go Cooper Flagg, ACC Player of the Year. Freshman of the year, got to double up. Cooper Flagg, can't be if your freshman is a national player of the year, you got to be freshman of the year. Otherwise, you're not making any sense whatsoever. And then transfer of the year, like I had to go look. And that's when I discovered in the 24/7 Sports transfer rankings, they have ACC has no top 30 incoming transfers. I'll go Cade Tyson at North Carolina. He, of course, is the transfer from Belmont. Projects as a starter. But if you'd have told me yesterday afternoon, did you realize the ACC really didn't bring in impact transfers at the rate of the other power conference? I did not notice. But when you dive into it, it's just not there because the league apparently is impoverished.
Okay. I think my prediction is, so we're together. You got a Cooper Flagg, freshman of the year. Player of the year, I went RJ Davis. I'll predict that the most impactful and valuable transfer in the league, I'll say it will come from a team that finishes outside the top 6 in the standings. So the stats and the production from a transfer on a allegedly lesser team will wind up being the guy that matters the most there. I do like Tyson's capability, and I'm interested to see if he can. He's not going to average what he did at Belmont, but can he give them 13 a night? I'll be interested in that. I will go Terrence Edwards Jr. at Louisville. There's a lot of worthy transfers to consider up and down. Basically, the teams that I've got projected like 10 and lower, but I think Edwards, I like if he is going to be one notch higher than he was with James Madison, then I like his chances to be an efficient, an impressive guy that gets it done all season long. And maybe, hey, if I wind up being wrong and have Louisville too low, maybe he's the guy that can get Louisville into that top 8 conversation and really have them knocking on the door of the tournament. So should be quite the fun year, and I expect good things ahead for the ACC. I think some of the Schadenfreude that has been out there with this league, which gets dissipated rightfully so by the performances in March, I don't think that will be nearly as prominent this year. In part because although teams that finish 16, 17, and 18 will inherently not be good, knock on wood, I guess, we by no means should have another Louisville type situation. I mean, good Lord, if that winds up happening, then we're in some real trouble.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. You know what else is interesting? Should we plug Thursday's show?
If you want to.
I don't see why we can't.
Well, okay. Let's talk through it. Pros, promoting the next show. That's a great pro, right?
I think that is a great pro.
Con, what if there's another ambitious college basketball podcast that tries to to swoop in and
I-
grab our.
I don't believe that is the case because I believe the topic of that show has communicated that will not be the case.
Okay,
But unless
go
you
ahead.
have unless you have information that I don't have.
You know what? Promote away.
Folks, we're going to have Woj on the show Thursday. We almost never have guests, but Woj, Adrian Wojnarowski, you may have heard of him. He's going to take time out from trying to build a dynasty in Olean, New York, and hop on the show and talk about, the things that we're curious about. Just how many NIL middlemen has he been talking to over the past 2.5 weeks? I believe
your mind. I guess this goes without saying. If you know Woj's approach to anything, he's serious about this. I mean, buddy, he is serious.
Well, we had the pod for Thursday scheduled for a certain time. I'm not going to say exactly why it got moved, but it had to get moved for a meeting that is NIL related with a certain kind of company. And I said, okay, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do.
Great. So on Thursday afternoon, it will be the former Master of Ceremonies of A10 Media Day pre-pandemic, future Atlantic 10 Hall of Famer, and Matt Norlander all sitting here. Amen. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Strawface 23 asks, will Vicini be on after Woj? We'll see if we can get to Vicini. I think we've run out of time here on this episode.
He was here. He was going to – I love Sam. He tweeted something last night. He said, here's a 45-minute breakdown of some person I've never heard of's 11-point performance. I mean, he's the best because he really can talk for 45 minutes about somebody I've never heard of. And probably, you ready? Somebody I'll never need to know. But it was so fun. It was like, here's a 45-minute breakdown of some international player you've never heard of who just scored 11 points. I was like, okay.
That's amazing.
He's amazing.
We'll try and get him on the show there. But if you're curious on stuff with Woj, we're looking forward to having him, and we'll talk Bonnie's basketball. But I also I've got a few big picture questions I think the audience probably is thinking as well. And he's awesome to come on and give us time. He's not making himself available to a ton of interviews, so we appreciate that. And we're looking forward to giving you a different kind of episode on Thursday.
Thursday afternoon, Adrian Wojnarowski will join us here on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. In the meantime, shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend, Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to or watching the Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So go do that. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. LGM. Bye-bye.